check if a number is a prime number or not, print prime numbers from so and so range, like from 1 to n, print Fibonacci series from 1 to n, check string is a palindrome or not, how to reverse the words in the string, length of a string, like, and there will be functions to convert temperatures between Celsius as well as Fahrenheit. So these are the assignments which we have given. Before going to discuss these assignments, let me try to revise the previous concepts. So range function, very important. Again, I am trying to repeat this. Similarly, for loop as well as while loop. And there is another thing which we can use in the for loop, that we can try to use for else loop. So I will also discuss for else loop. It is very important to discuss these concepts which are already discussed. It is very important before going to do these assignments. Let me try to revise this. So what is a range function? Very important. What is a range function? So a range function represents a sequence. Range function represents a sequence of numbers. Very important. See, it only represents, a range function only represents a sequence of numbers, not anything else, not string, not anything. It only represents sequence of numbers. What is the syntax of a range function? A range function has 3 arguments. Range function has 3 arguments. When I say arguments, those are nothing but parameters. So how it is having that syntax? A range of, you will have start parameter as well as end parameter as well as step parameter. So in this, step is optional. Step is optional. By default, its value is 1. By default, its value is 1. It is very important that range function represents a sequence of numbers, not anything else. It only represents a sequence of numbers, only integer data type. Like, range function has 3 arguments. One is start as well as end as well as step. By default, this step is having 1. If you don't mention any value to this step, it will take 1 only. And the other thing, end is also optional. End is also optional. End is also optional. You may mention or you may not mention. It is as our requirement. Optional. End is also optional. Very important. Then how it behaves. How it behaves when I pass the parameters to this particular range function, how it behaves. Let us try to see one example so that you can understand better. So in the day 4, I have discussed about range function. I will try to make you understand and go through those examples. So when I specify range of 10, I have just specified only starting value. I mean, this is nothing but only one value. This is one way of representation of range function, only one value. And this is start as well as this is end. And thereafter, you are also having another type of representation. So this range function will have 3 parameters, like start, end, as well as step function. So another important point, range function always considers end minus 1. Always consider end minus 1. It is important, very important to understand that what is end minus 1. So when I specify any value to the end parameter, that range function will only consider end minus 1. Suppose if I specify some 0 to 10, I have to print. It will only print 0 to 9 only, because 10 minus 1 is 9. Similarly, if I want to print numbers from 10 to 20, it will only print 10 to 19, because 10 to 20 end value is 20, but it will only print up to 90. 20 minus 1, it is 19. Let us try to see that example so that you can understand better. I will not be using this particular example just for our understanding. I am just using this particular thing. So I will only print a range function. So range function always returns an object. Always returns an object. In order to make them in order, I am just using list function. So whatever the thing that range function will return, I'm just making that as a list. So there is no need of any confusion here. So what you are specifying in the range function, you are specifying the start value and you are specifying the end value, and you are not specifying step value. So if you are not specifying any step value, it will only consider default value 1. All right. So in this case, as I said you before, range function always considers end minus 1. End minus 1. If I specify 12 here, it will only consider up to 11. 5 to 11, it will only print. It is very important. If I specify some 100 here, so 100 minus 1, end minus 1, it is nothing but 99. It will only print up to 99. Let us try to see that how it behaves. If you can see, it has only printed 99 numbers. Very important. Always range function considers end minus 1. End minus 1. These are the details which you require for this example. If you want more details, I have discussed in detail what is range function and how we can use positive range function as well as negative range function. That means how I can print the numbers in positive in forward direction as well as in negative direction. You can go for the class in detail. That is class 4. And similarly, this is about the range function. Let me discuss about the while loop before we proceed for loop. What is a while loop? So while loop as well as for loop, both are nothing but iterative statements. Iterative or looping. For loop as well as while loop, this name itself says these are looping statements. What they will do. So coming to while loop, if you want to execute a group of statements, iteratively means in a loop. Until some condition is false. Then we should go for while loop. While loop. And very important, while loop has the syntax of initialization as well as condition as well as increment or decrement. Based on your requirement, you will increment or decrement. Very important. If you want to execute a group of statements, iteratively, iteratively means in an order, in a cyclic way, until some condition is false. Then we should go for while loop. Very important to discuss this while loop, range function, for loop, for else loop before going to discuss these assignments. So this is what about while loop. Let me try to show you that example how the while loop looks. Those are nothing but iterative statements. See, always for a while loop, it is having initialization, condition, as well as increment or decrement. It is based on your condition. So here, I want to print numbers from 1 to 10 in ascending order. So this is my requirement. So first, I have to initialize the variable. In order to print these particular numbers in ascending order using while loop, as I said, while loop is nothing but an iterative statement. It executes a group of statements iteratively. These are the group of statements. And until some condition becomes a false. So this is the condition. I want to print the numbers in ascending order up to 10. For this, what I have to do, I have to initialize a variable I is equal to 1. This is nothing but initialization. And this is the condition. If I is equal to 1, what it will do? It will try to check the condition. If this condition is true, then only it will try to enter this body. Right? This is nothing but the loop or body. So in this body, you will just to print that particular number. Thereafter, what you will do, you will again increment that number. So I is equal to I plus 1. It is nothing but incrementation. Still it is 1, but what you are doing, thereafter you are just trying to increment that. I plus 1. Nothing but 1 plus 1. It is true. Again, it will try to check the condition. 2 plus 2 is less than 10. True. Print 2. It will print 2. Similarly, I is equal to 2 plus 1. It is 3. I is 3 here. 3 is less than 10. Yes. Up to 11, it will try to be with this 10. When I is equal to 10, 10 plus 1, it is nothing but 11. When I is equal to 11, 11 less than 10, this condition becomes false. It will not execute this particular statement, or it will not execute this particular group of statements. So what a while loop does, it will execute a group of statements. In this, only one statement is nothing but print and increment. So it will try to execute a group of statements until a certain condition becomes false. In this case, if I want to print, this condition becomes false when 11 is less than 10. So up to that, it will try to print. So this is what about while loop. So if you observe in the while loop, I have to specify initialization, I have to specify the condition. Thereafter, based on my requirement, I have to specify increment or decrement. If you can see here, if I want to print the same numbers in the descending order, I will just initialize 10, because 10 to 1 or 0 I have to print. So for that, what I am doing, just decrementing. In the previous case, in the ascending order, I am just incrementing. Here, I am just decrementing. That is the only issue. And as per my requirement, the logic is also changed. So when I is equal to -1, this condition becomes false. This particular statement is not executed. So what does a while statement says? It executes a group of statements iteratively until some condition or until condition is false. Until the condition is false, it executes a group of statements. If the condition is false, it will not execute those statements. It will come out of that particular loop. This is somewhat about while loop. Then it is very important to understand the syntax. While loop always has initialization, condition, increment. Then I don't want to use all this stuff, but I want to use this in a minimum code. I want to use this in a minimum code. I don't want to make separate statement for initialization, for condition, as well as increment. If I want to merge this in one single thing, that is nothing but a for loop. Let us try see what is a for loop. Very important, very important. For loop. What is a for loop? If we want to execute some action for every element present in some sequence, then we should go for loop. Very important. Let me repeat this another time. If I want to execute some action, that action may be printing or some multiplication, everything that considered as some action here for every element present in some sequence. What is that sequence? That sequence may be list or string, or I can say the range function also. When I say range function, it is also a sequence, right? So range function is also a sequence. When I say every element present in the some sequence, that sequence must be list or string or tuple or collections, collectively called, those are called as collections. And similarly for range also, when I say sequence, range also comes in as a part of that sequence. Then we should go for loop. So if we use for loop with range function, we can avoid this initialization, condition, and increment or decrement explicitly. How we can use? So before going to use that, let me make this point clear. If we use for loop with range function, then we can avoid explicit declaration of initialization as well as condition as well as increment or decrement. Very important. So these are already included in the for loop with the range function. So let me try to execute or show you one demo. So before going to this, so before going to use this, what I will do, I will try to make you understand how I can use for loop. So for loop executes some action for every element in the sequence, right? for every element in sequence. What is the sequence? Suppose I can say, like, let me define one list. Let me define one list here. List is equal to, suppose 1, 2, 3, and so on. Suppose some random name. It is a collection of multiple variables, right? So I can say it is nothing but, suppose John, I can take this. Similarly, John 1, 2, 3, collection of string as well as integer. John 1, 2, 3. So it is nothing but a collection. So list is also a collection. What the for loop says, for every element in a sequence, that sequence must be a list or collection. List are collectively called as collections, like list, tuple, set, dictionary are collectively called as collections in Python, as well as range function. For every element in, suppose I will take in this example, sequence is list. In list, what I have to do, I have to execute some action. That action must be as per your requirement, like, you can do addition, multiplication, division, or anything what the thing you want. But in this case, just for your understanding, I'm just only printing that particular element for every element. So that every element in that particular list, I'm just printing that element. So this is nothing but basic for loop. So if you can see in the for loop, I have these particular elements. It has printed each and every element for each and every element. Similar way, how I can use range function in for loop? As we have said, we can avoid explicit declaration of initialization, condition, increment or decrement by using for loop with range function. For loop with range function. How I can use range function with for loop? If you can see here, let me try to define for each element in range function. So that range function you can define as 10. When I specify 10, it will print values from 0 to 9. And similarly, when I use range function with start and end value, suppose this is the 10 is the start value, and suppose end value is the 50, it will always consider n minus 1. So the thing is, it will try to print start to n minus 1 values for each and every element. Right? So I'm just printing in a sequential order. So print off each element. I'm just printing as like in the list. Instead of list, I have taken the range function. There is no difference. So in the range function, I have just specified the range. It is not, this range is nothing but a sequence of numbers, right? So that range always have start as well as end conditions. I'm just printing that. So you want to print first 10 numbers, as like in while loop. If you want to print first 10 numbers, what you will do? You will just specify 1, 11 here, because if I specify 11 here, it will consider 11 minus 1, 10. So in this case, it will print only 1 to 10 numbers. My condition is 1 to 10 I have to print. If I want to print 1 to 10, I have to specify 11 here, because n minus 1 is equal to 10, n is equal to 10 plus 1 is 11, right? In that way also I can understand, right? Let me try to run this. If you can see here, I have not explicitly defined initialization, condition, as well as increment or decrement. If you see the range function, as like in the while function which printed the same output, it has also printed the same output. So only when I use range function along with for loop, I can try to print whatever I want without explicit initialization as well as declaration. So and the other thing, suppose if I mention some 2, 50, or if I mention, let me take one simple example, 2, 15. I want to print the range of values between 2, 15. So it will only print 2 to 14. It will only print 2 to 14 because it will separate 1 n minus 1 from this particular range. In the range function, as I discussed before, range function always considers n to minus 1. It will always use the sequence of numbers, specify the end value, and it will separate minus 1 from the end value. So let me try to print. If you can see here, it will try to print 2 to 14. So I asked the range function to use or to print the statements, to print the numbers from 2 to 15. But when I specify 15 here, it will only print 14 because n to minus 1. It has printed 2 to 15. It is very important. It's very important to understand. In this way, you can use for loop. Instead of while loop, you can use for loop with range function. It is very important. Then how can you use for each loop? How can you use for each loop? Before going to use for each loop, let me try to make you one example or one statement clear. For each loop, not for each loop, it's for else loop. What is for else loop? Up to now, we have used if else condition only. We have used if condition. If the condition is true, it will enter the body of the if loop. If it is not true, it will try to execute body of else loop. So this is how we have used else with for else with if condition. But if I want to use else with for loop, how I can use? If I want to use else with for, how I can use for loop? So just as like the syntax of if else, you will just specify else here. That's it. And in the else, you will have some statement. Like, let me try to make you clear before trying to see that particular example. So what is an for else loop and how it executes? The else block just after the for loop or while loop is executed only when the loop is not terminated by a break statements. When the loop is not terminated by a break statements. Whenever we are discussing control statements in Python, we have discussed about break statements. So in the break statements, we have discussed about break. When I use break, it will terminate the loop execution. According to this definition, the else block for else loop is executed when the for loop is executed. If there is, or if the for loop is terminated by using break statement, then else loop will not be executed. Let me make you clear with some example. So if you can see here, this is the best example you can see. What I am doing, I am just specifying each value here. I am just printing each value in the range function by using for loop. So when I specify 1 comma 4, it will try to print 1 to 3 values. I'm just printing each and every value. So instead of every element, I have just specified that element as I. That's it. So as said before, this else block is executed when this for loop is not terminated by break statement. Right? Let us try to see. So if you can see here, it has printed 1, 2, 3 as per the range sequence, and similarly it also executed else block. In the else block, I have printed just no break, right? But if I use break here, if you can see here, if I use break, I'm just terminating this for loop. I'm just terminating this for loop with the help of break statement. So in this case, what it will do? In this case, it will do when I terminate the for loop execution with this break statement, then it will try to. This else block is not executed. Only this else block is executed if that for loop is executed. If the for loop is terminated with break statement, then this else block also not executed. Let me make you clear with one example. So if you can see here, I'm just terminating this for loop with the break statement. If I terminate the for loop with break statement, this else block also is not executed. If you can see here, it will only print 1 because for 1 in range of 1 comma 4 first iteration, it only printed that one. Thereafter, I have terminated this for loop by using break statement. So after termination, it also not printed that break statement. If you can see here, that is what the for else loop behaves. Up to now, these are the important concepts which you need to revise or you need to know before checking if a number is a prime number or not, or printing the prime numbers from 1 to n. So let me make you clear with one by one example so that you can understand better. So what is a prime number? What is a prime number? Any number is a prime number if that particular number is divisible by 1 and itself. If it is divisible by 1 and itself, or if it is not divisible by any other number. Even, let me make you clear. A number is said to be a prime number if it is not divisible by any other number. Very important, not divisible by any other number except by 1 and itself. If you see the example of 5, this 5 is only divisible by 1 and 5 only. 1 and 5 only. If you can see 15. This 15 is divisible by 1 as well as 3, as well as 5, as well as 15. So 5 is a prime number, 15 is not a prime number because it is also divisible by 3 and 5, which it violates the condition of a prime number. So it should only be divisible by 1 and itself. When I say 15, it should be divisible by 1 and 15 only. When it is even divisible by 3 and 5, or even more factors if you find, then it is not a prime number. If you can see, 5 is a prime number because it is only divisible by 1 and by itself. But 15 is divisible by 1 and by itself. Along with this, it is also divisible by 3 and 5. So for a prime number, it should have only 2 factors, 1 and itself, only 2 factors. But for a non-prime number, it should have even more than that. So with this example, let us try to see how we can try to check whether a number is a prime number or not. New Python file, I'm just creating the Python file, prime number. So when I create a Python file, you just observe that .py extension is present. So let me take the example of 15. I want to check whether this number is a prime number or not. Thereafter, I will try to generalize this for all the numbers. So I'm just assigning flag is equal to 0. This is the variable as like I is equal to 0, j equal to 0. I'm just initializing one variable like flag. So I'm just assuming if flag is equal to 0, this particular number is a prime number. If flag is equal to 0, this particular number is a prime number. I am just assuming. I am not sure whether it is a prime number or not, but I am just assuming that if flag is equal to 0, flag variable is equal to 0 means a prime number. So thereafter, I will try to check. So for a prime number, it should have 2 factors, 1 and 15 only, right? I am checking the prime number 15, whether it is a prime number or not. 15 is a prime number or not. So for a prime number, it should have divisible by only by 1 and by itself. If it is divisible by the numbers in between 1 and 15, then it is not a prime number. So if divisible by 2 to 14, or I can say if it is divisible by the numbers in between 1 and the particular number 15, then it is not a prime number. So anyway, every number is divisible by 1 and itself, that is fine. And thereafter, I need to check whether that particular number is at least divisible by any number within this range or not, that particular range or not. So if you can see, I will take another example. If you can see 17. When I say 17, I need to check whether this particular number is a prime number or not. To check whether it is a prime number or not, as per definition, if it is divisible by 1 and itself means 17, it is a prime number. So including this, I need to check whether it is divisible by the numbers in between that particular 1 to 17. So 2 to 16, I need to check if 17 is divisible by the numbers in between that 1 and 17. So in between 1 and 17, it is nothing but a range. What is the range? That range starts from 2 to 16. So for 16, I need to mention 17 in the range function. So for this, just try to understand this. I'm just checking the 15 whether it is a prime number or not. So what I'm doing, I'm just using for loop with range function. For each and every number, so that each and every number I will take as I here. I in range of 2, 15. When I specify 2 to 15, it will consider 2 to 14 only as per this requirement, right? Because why I have not mentioned 1 here? Every number is divisible by 1, so not required. So my loop starts from, or should be from 2 to 15. So that is the reason why I have mentioned 2 to 15 here. So what I am doing, if this 15 is divisible by this particular number, each and every number I have to check. If it is divisible then it should be, remainder should be 0. If it is divisible, then I have to make flag is equal to 0, 1. So what I'm doing, just it is my logic that, just assuming that 15, I need to check it is a prime number or not. So by blindly, I'm trying to think that it is a prime number. If it is a prime number, flag should be equal to 0. So what I'm doing, I'm just checking if that particular 15 is divisible by any number in this range, nothing but 2 to 14. I am just doing that if flag should be equal to 1. Just changing the value from 0 to 1 if it is divisible by anything. And thereafter, at last, if it is divisible by any number within this particular range, then flag is equal to 0. So as I said before, flag should be equal to 0. If it should be a prime number, I'm checking if flag is equal to 0 or not. If flag is equal to 0, then it is a prime number, right? But if it is not, so flag is not 0, other than 0, if it is having 1, then it is nothing but a print, not a prime number. Not a prime number. Very simple logic. You are just checking that is it divisible by this range or not. If it is divisible, then it has factors 2 or more, right? Or you can say you are just assigning that, and if it is at least divisible by any of the number within this range, you are just making that flag is 1. You are just changing that 0 to 1 here. If this condition is true, it will execute. If else condition, if condition is true, it will execute the body. So when this condition becomes true, if it is divisible by any of the number within this range. So if it is 1, then I can say it is not a prime number. So I'm just changing that value if it is divisible by anything. So let me try to execute this. I'm just checking 15 here. If you can see here, 15 is not a prime number, right? Let me try to generalize this. Instead of 15, I can try to say that I can try to use any one number by the user. I will try to take the input from the user. So I'm just using this particular number. When I use this particular number, input of enter the number, it will try to use this number here. It will try to use this number. So I should check whether it is divisible by 2 to num minus 1. As like 15, I am checking 2 to 14. So 14 is nothing but 15 minus 1. So as like number minus 1 here. So 2 to number minus 1, I have to check. So for checking this, I have to specify the range as 2 to num, and I need to use that particular number here. Instead of 15, I can use that particular number here. Num by I, that particular number in the range is equal to 0. I'm just checking whether it is divisible by that particular number in the range in between 1 to that number. So if it is divisible, I'm just changing flag is equal to 1. If flag is 0, as I just assumed before, I'm just saying that it is a prime number. Otherwise, it is not a prime number. Likewise, you can just try to run. If you can see here, syntax is I need to comment this. Yes. If you can see, enter the number. Just suppose I want to check whether 25 is a prime number or not. If you can see, 25 is not a prime number. Similarly, let me try to check whether 97 is a prime number or not. It is only divisible by 1 and 97, not by other cells. So in this way, you can try to check whether a number is a prime number or not. Then another important prime number program. Up to now, you have checked whether a number is a prime number or not. If I want to print the range of prime numbers from 1 to n, or some from 1 to 200, from 1 to 1000, how I can try to write the logic. So what I will do here, I will use for else loop. So let me try to make you understand. For number, for each and every number, or I can say for I, in range of, when I specify range, the condition is also specified there. Initialization is also specified there. Range of, I have to print the numbers of nothing but prime numbers from 1, 1000. What are the prime numbers present in between 1 to 1000? I need to print the prime numbers range. Within this range, how many prime numbers are present? I need all of them. So as you see here, this is the condition. You will check whether it is divisible by that or not. Similarly, you can use this prime number logic here only. For I, instead of I, which is already defined, I can use j here. For j in range of 2, that number is nothing but what is that number? This particular I here. This is a loop inside a for loop, nested for loop. So I need to check whether this particular number is within the number of this particular range. Within the range of that particular number, I'm just checking whether it is a prime number or not. I by j. If it is a prime number, then I should print. Otherwise, what I'm doing, I'm just trying to break the loop. If I break the loop, it will try to execute print of. I need to print that particular number. So here, if you can see, I have just used the prime number logic. I'm just checking whether it is divisible by any number within that specified range. For that, what I'm doing, I'm just specifying nested for loop, a for loop within another for loop, right? If it is divisible by any number, then it should break. Otherwise, it should not break. So if it is divisible, then it is not a prime number. It will try to check this condition. If it is not true, it will not execute. It will not execute break. It will not terminate this for loop. So if it is not terminated, it will try to execute this. Let us try to see. Up to 1000, I want the numbers to be printed, prime numbers to be printed. If you can see here, let me try to comment this. Let me try to execute this another time. If you can see here, these are all the numbers from 1 to 1000, prime numbers. So these are the prime numbers from 1 to 1000. So there is no rocket science here. I have just used the condition for checking the prime number. That's it. So instead of statically specifying the number, I have just taken the range. That's it. Instead of this particular number, I have just taken the range because I want prime numbers to be printed within this certain range. That's it. I have just to only use the logic of prime number. Very important. No need of any confusion here. So instead of this 1000, what I will do, I will just generalize this. I will try to take one particular number variable. I will try to specify it here. That's it. Just to generalizing that. That's it. No need of any confusion. So I want to print the prime numbers up to some 10,000, or you can say like 1 lakh. Let me try to use this 1000. If you can see, these are the numbers between 1 to 1000 prime numbers. If I want to print the prime numbers between some 10,000, you can see here these are the prime numbers between 1 to 10,000. In this way, you can print the prime, check the prime number, whether the number is a prime number or not, and with that also you can try to check if it is a prime number. If it is a prime number, I need to print that particular statements or nothing but the prime numbers between this particular range. This is nothing but how you can check a prime number as well as how you can print the prime numbers between so and so range. This is prime number. Let us try to see what is a Fibonacci series. Very important. What is a Fibonacci series? What is a Fibonacci series? Let us try to see the definition first so that you can have some edge. So what is a Fibonacci series? A Fibonacci series is a series of numbers. In which each number is the sum of two preceding numbers. We'll not understand with this example. Just try to see one example here. Suppose if I take for Fibonacci series, you should have always two numbers. In this case, what I want to do, I want to just print the Fibonacci series from starting 0 onwards. I need to print. So starting 0 is 1, and thereafter it is 0 as well as 1. And I want to get the third number. If I want to get the number, I need to add these two numbers. So 0 plus 1 is 1. Similarly, preceding two numbers, I am just adding. 1 plus 1, it is 2. Similarly, preceding numbers, 2 plus 1, it is 3. Similarly, 3 plus 2, it is 5. Similarly, 5 plus 8 is 8. This is a Fibonacci series. You are just adding each number or nothing but Fibonacci number, or I can say you are just getting the Fibonacci number by the sum of two preceding numbers. For this number, 3 and 5 are two preceding numbers, before numbers. I'm just adding this. So by adding this, I'm getting 8. So I want to get another number, so I want to add preceding numbers. So 8 plus 5, it is 13. So in this way, you can write the Fibonacci series. Very important. So this is nothing but a Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series is a series of numbers in which each number is the sum of two preceding numbers. So this is nothing but a Fibonacci series. Let us try to print Fibonacci series numbers. Let me try to create one Python file. Fibonacci. So for Fibonacci series, if you see here, I'm just considering n is equal n1. Suppose two numbers I'm just considering. Suppose this is a and this is b, and I'm just adding this to get this particular number. I'm just adding these two preceding numbers. So a total three variables, a, b, as well as this is sum. So this sum is nothing but a plus b, right? We have just seen that condition. So thereafter, what you need to do again? You need to replace a value with 1 and b value with 1, so that you will get sum as 2. Similarly, when you get sum as 2, it will need to loop again. A should be replaced to 1, b should be replaced to 2. So a plus b is nothing but 3. See, again, a should be changed to 2, b should be changed to 3. Right? So that in that case, next Fibonacci number will be 5. So likewise, a value and b value should be also changing in a series, in a loop, right? So for that, I will use for loop. So before going to that, let me try to initialize a is equal to 0 as well as b is equal to 1. b is equal to 1. So these are the two numbers as per this example. A is equal to 0, b is equal to 1. Then I need to get a plus b as the third number, nothing but Fibonacci number. So for getting this, what I will do, I will use for loop. I'm just printing that numbers in a loop. So for this, I will use for loop. For I in range of, I need to print the Fibonacci numbers from 2 to 10. So nothing but I can say 0 to 10. So I have already specified 0 here. So I need to specify the other number. After 0 and 1, I need to specify other number here. So that is 2 comma up to which range or which number I need to print. Suppose I need to print up to 100. So what I will do, I will just use this range. For loop with range function. So it avoids explicit initialization, declaration as well as condition as well. If you can see here, I'm just printing a plus b, right? I'm just printing a plus b. So sum is equal to a as well as plus b. Similarly, what I'm doing, just printing the sum. That's it. The sum is nothing but Fibonacci number. So again, this a value to be replaced to 1 and b value to be replaced to sum, right? What I'm doing now, then a is equal to b because a is to be replaced to 1 and b is to be replaced to sum, right? Third value. So b is equal to sum, right? So in the first sequence for I, it is nothing but you will just try to add this. You will, when you add sum is equal to a plus b, you will try to get 1. Yes, sum is 1 here, and a is 0. When a is equal to 0, b is equal to 1, sum is equal to 1 here. Thereafter, you need to change a value to 1 and b value to 1 in order to get another Fibonacci number. Similarly, if you get this Fibonacci number, this is nothing but the sum. You need to assign this sum as to b and thereafter this particular value as to a, right? So if you can see here, so that is the thing what I have done here. I just swapped it. So a is equal to b. Upon getting the sum, I'm just swapping. I'm just passing b value to a and as well as sum to b. This is nothing but a Fibonacci logic. So if you can see here, it will try to print the Fibonacci numbers. So these are all the Fibonacci numbers which I have present between 2 to 100.